The great hall was loud in the way Hogwarts always was at dinner. Plates clinked, kids laughed. A few owls swooped high near the ceiling. The candles floated in neat rows like they had done it forever. Albus Dumbledore sat at the staff table and watched the room the way he always did. He watched for small things: a tense face, a whispered fight, a student who was too quiet. Harry Potter was quiet tonight. Dumbledore saw it at once. Harry's shoulders were tight. His eyes kept sliding to the doors, then to the dark windows, then back to his plate, like he did not trust the night outside. Then the air above the staff table made a sound that did not belong in a school. It was not a bang. It was not a crack. It was like someone ripped cloth. But the cloth was the world. A thin line of bright white light opened in the air. It spread fast. It became a jagged tear. The candles flickered. The hall went cold. Forks dropped. 100 heads tilted up at once. From the tear, a man fell. He hit the table hard, rolled, and dropped to the floor between Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall. Plates flew. A pumpkin pasty spun through the air like a thrown stone. Before anyone could shout, the man's hand lifted. Nothing touched him. No wand moved. No spell words were spoken. And yet the flying plates stopped in midair. They hung there, shaking, as if they were stuck in thick water. With one sharp motion of his hand, the plates and cups rushed away from the nearest students. They slid to the far end of the table and dropped in a noisy pile. No one was cut. No one was burned. For a half-second, the man lay still. Then he pushed himself up on one elbow. His clothes were strange. Dark boots, dark pants, a light shirt, a short jacket, and a belt with a smooth metal tube clipped at his side. His eyes took in the room fast. Not scared. Not calm either. Ready. Professor McGonagall already had her wand out. Snape's wand was out too. Flitwick stood on his chair to see. Hagrid rose so quickly his bench scraped to the floor. Dolores Umbridge made a small, high sound in her throat, like a mouse that smelled a cat. The man reached for the metal tube. Many wands aimed at him at once. "Stop," Dumbledore said, loud enough to cut through the panic. But the man did not stop. He pressed a button. A bright green blade burst from the metal tube with a sharp hum. It lit his face from below. It was not fire. It was not a spell anyone in the hall knew. It was a clean, solid light that looked like it could cut stone. Gasps rolled across the hall. Some students screamed. Others leaned forward like this was the best thing they had ever seen. The man held the blade at an angle, not pointed at anyone, not raised to strike, like a shield. He glanced at the wands aimed at his chest, then at the kids frozen in fear, then back to the teachers. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he said. His voice was steady. Tired, but steady. "Where am I?" His eyes flicked to Dumbledore's long beard and half-moon glasses. Dumbledore felt it then, not with a spell, with instinct. This was not a trick. This was not a normal intruder. Something else had stepped into Hogwarts. Umbridge's smile snapped into place, fast and fake. "Headmaster," she said, still in her sweet voice. "This is clearly an armed and dangerous—" "No," Harry blurted. He did not know why he spoke, he just did. He felt a pressure in his scar, like a distant hand closing. He had felt that before, when Voldemort was near, when Voldemort was thinking hard. Harry stared at the green blade. It lit the man's face, and Harry saw something there that made his chest hurt. Not evil, not cold, just heavy. The man's gaze landed on Harry for a second. Harry felt like the man could see the fear behind his eyes, like it was a book left open on a table. Then, in the far corner of Harry's mind, something stirred. A laugh that wasn't his. A smooth, cold thought that slid in like smoke. Interesting, that thought seemed to say. Harry's scar burned. At the same time, somewhere far away, in a dark place where no light was welcome, Lord Voldemort paused. He had felt a rip in the world. He had felt a new kind of power. Not a wand, not a curse. Something older, quieter, and sharp. His red eyes narrowed. "A guest," he whispered, and he smiled, not with joy, but with hunger. Dumbledore moved first, not with force, but with care. "Lower your light," Dumbledore said gently, as if he were speaking to a nervous creature. "You are safe here for the moment, and you are in Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." The man blinked once. "Hogwarts," he repeated, as if testing the word. He looked at the blade in his hand, then at the children, then at Dumbledore again. The green light made the fear on many faces look even sharper. He pressed the button. The blade vanished back into the metal tube. The hum stopped. The hall did not relax. If anything, it grew quieter. The quiet of people waiting for the next strike. Dumbledore stood. He did not point a wand. He did not raise his voice. "My name is Albus Dumbledore," he said. "May I ask your name?" The man hesitated, just long enough for Dumbledore to notice. Then he gave a small nod. "Luke," he said. "Luke is fine." "Luke," Dumbledore repeated, as if he were placing the name into a careful drawer in his mind. "Come with me, Luke. We will speak somewhere quieter." Umbridge made a stiff little laugh. "Headmaster, surely we should restrain him first. For the children." Dumbledore's eyes turned to her. They stayed warm, but something harder sat behind the warmth. "The children," Dumbledore said, "are safest when we do not turn every mystery into a cage." Snape's black eyes did not leave Luke's hands. "Or when we don't invite unknown weapons into our home," Snape said. Luke's gaze moved to Snape. For a moment, Luke's face tightened, like he knew that kind of voice. The voice of someone who trusted plans more than people. "I don't want to be anyone's weapon," Luke said. His words were simple, but the way he said them made Ron Weasley swallow hard. Harry watched Luke's shoulders. Luke stood like a soldier, like someone used to danger, but he also stood like someone who had learned not to let danger control him. Dumbledore led Luke out of the Great Hall. Professors formed a loose ring around them. Wands were still in hands, but no one cast. As they walked, Luke's eyes moved everywhere. He stared at the floating candles for a second too long. He glanced at the talking portraits, and his brow furrowed. When a suit of armor shifted its weight with a clank, Luke's head snapped toward it like he expected an attack. "Is this place alive?" Luke asked, quiet to Dumbledore. "In a way," Dumbledore said. "It is old. It has many habits." They reached the moving staircase. It shifted with a groan, changing direction without warning. Luke stopped dead. The stair moved away from him like it was avoiding him. Luke stared at it. "That's not normal," he said. Hermione Granger, who had followed with Harry and Ron at a distance, whispered, "He talks like Dad when the television stops working." Ron whispered back, "What's a telly? Never mind." Dumbledore guided Luke up another stair that appeared at the right moment. It was as if the castle was watching Luke too, curious and cautious. In Dumbledore's office, the air smelled like old paper and lemon drops. Instruments whirred and clicked. A silver bird dipped its head and poured itself into a bowl. Luke stepped in, then paused again as portraits turned to look at him. One portrait, a grumpy old wizard, frowned. "Who's this, then?" Luke's hand drifted near the metal tube at his belt, then stopped. He forced his own hand down. He took a slow breath. Dumbledore noticed that breath. It was not fear. It was control. Dumbledore gestured to a chair. Luke did not sit. He stayed standing near the door. He was polite, but he chose the spot that gave him the best view of the room. Reasonable, Dumbledore said softly, mostly to himself. Snape stood by the wall like a shadow. McGonagall stayed near Dumbledore, alert. Hermione hovered with bright eyes. Harry and Ron were there too, because Dumbledore allowed it. Luke, Dumbledore began, you came through a tear in the air. That is not common even for us. Do you know how it happened? Luke's jaw tightened. I was following something, he said. A disturbance, a pull. I felt it through the Force. The Force, Hermione repeated at once, as if she could taste the word. Snape's eyes narrowed. A spell, Snape said. Flat. Luke looked at Snape again. Not a spell, Luke said. It's an energy. It binds living things together. You feel it. You listen to it. Hermione's eyes shone. So it's like magic, but different, Luke said. He was careful with his words, like he was trying not to sound foolish. Dumbledore's fingers steepled. And you are a wizard of your world? Luke shook his head. No, I'm a Jedi. Ron blinked. A what? A Jedi, Luke said. A knight. Not like in your stories, probably. We protect people. We keep peace. We try to do what's right. Snape's mouth curled slightly. Try, he repeated, as if the word was a weakness. Luke did not rise to it. He only nodded once. Yes, he said. Try. Dumbledore's voice stayed gentle. Tell us your story in simple steps, Luke, the parts you feel safe to share. Luke looked down for a moment, as if he were choosing which memories to hold and which to keep closed. Then he spoke, steady and clear. I grew up on a desert planet, Luke said. I was no one important. Then I learned I had the Force. I trained. I fought an empire that hurt people. Harry felt his scar twinge. Not pain, just a warning pulse. Power and fear. Those words always came together. Luke went on. I faced a man who was close to me. He was deep in darkness. I did not want to kill him. I chose mercy. That choice mattered. Hermione leaned forward. You mean you saved him? I tried, Luke said. He made his own choice in the end. Dumbledore nodded, as if he understood more than Luke had said. And now, Luke finished, I felt something, like a storm, like a call, and then I was here. Silence sat in the office for a beat. Then one of Dumbledore's instruments spat out a puff of purple smoke and whistled like it was annoyed. Ron jumped. Luke's hand twitched. Luke shut his eyes for half a second and took another slow breath. Hermione noticed. You do that a lot, she said. It helps, Luke said. A breathing exercise, Hermione said quickly, like she was labeling a jar. To focus. Luke gave her a small, grateful look. Yes, Snape stepped forward. You moved objects without a wand, Snape said. You stopped plates in midair. You carried no visible charm. Luke met his eyes. That's the Force, Luke said. And your glowing blade, Snape said. Luke's fingers brushed the metal tube at his belt. A lightsaber, he said. It's dangerous. I don't use it unless I have to. Ron whispered to Harry. Mate, did he just say lightsaber like that's normal? Harry whispered back. I don't think anything is normal anymore. Dumbledore's gaze moved to Harry for a moment. Harry, Dumbledore said, how do you feel? Harry hated that question, because the answer was always messy. My scar hurts, Harry said. It did when he arrived. Luke's face changed. Not fear. Not guilt. Just sharp attention. Someone is connected to you, Luke said quietly. Harry's stomach dropped. Yeah, Harry said. He's He's the reason we're all in trouble." "Voldemort," Hermione said, voice tight. Luke repeated the name, slow. "Voldemort." Saying it made the office feel colder. Snape's eyes flicked just once to Dumbledore. A silent message passed between them. Dumbledore spoke softly. "This Voldemort is a dark wizard. He is powerful, and he is cruel." Luke's jaw set. "Then he felt me," Luke said. "I believe," Dumbledore said. "That is very likely." A knock hit the door. Not polite, not gentle. Umbridge entered without waiting. Her pink cardigan looked even stranger in this room of old secrets. "Headmaster," Umbridge said brightly, "I have already written to the Ministry. This is a serious breach of school safety. We must—" Dumbledore lifted a hand. Umbridge kept talking anyway. "We must register him," Umbridge said. "Question him. Confiscate that weapon. And until then, he should be kept under guard. Preferably in the dungeons." Luke's eyes went flat. Not angry, controlled. But the air around him felt tighter, like the room itself noticed his patience. "I didn't ask to be here," Luke said. "And I'm not going to be locked up." Umbridge's smile did not move. "Oh, my dear," she cooed. "Everyone follows rules here." Luke looked at her. He did not understand the small cruelty in her voice, but he felt something was wrong. Dumbledore's tone stayed calm, but it carried weight. "Dolores," he said, "you will not place our guest in a dungeon." Umbridge's eyes hardened. "Then the Ministry will see this as defiance." Dumbledore nodded once. "They may." Snape's voice was quiet. "And what if this guest is the threat?" he asked. Luke's gaze moved to Snape. "You're planning for me," Luke said, not as a question. Snape did not deny it. "Always," Snape said. Luke breathed in slowly, breathed out slowly. "I'm not your enemy," Luke said, "but I won't pretend I'm harmless either. I can defend myself." Ron swallowed. Hermione watched Luke like she was watching a new kind of spell take shape. Dumbledore leaned forward. "Here's what we will do," he said. "Luke will stay at Hogwarts, under my protection. He may not wander at night alone. He may not enter certain areas without permission." Umbridge opened her mouth. Dumbledore continued. "In return, Luke will not be disarmed by force or treated as a criminal. We will learn who he is. We will learn how his power works. And we will keep our students safe." Snape's eyes narrowed. "And if he refuses?" Luke met Dumbledore's gaze. Dumbledore saw no hunger for control there, only a man who had carried a war and didn't want another. "I'll follow rules that make sense," Luke said. "I won't follow rules that exist to crush people." Umbridge's smile twitched, like it hurt to hold it. "How very bold." Dumbledore rose. "It is settled," he said. Luke exhaled slowly. In that moment, Harry realized something that made his chest feel strange. Luke was not afraid of the Ministry, and Voldemort was going to hate that. The next day, Hogwarts felt like it was holding its breath. News did not spread through owls first. It spread through whispers, through wide eyes in corridors, through pointing fingers and quick, excited retellings. The glowing sword. He stopped a whole table without a wand. By breakfast, even the portraits were gossiping. Luke tried to do something simple. He tried to find a quiet corner to sit and think. He failed. First, Peeves drifted by and dropped a water balloon on his head. Luke did not flinch. He only looked up, wet hair stuck to his forehead, and said, calm as ever, "Hello?" Peeves blinked, like he did not understand a person who did not get angry. Then a staircase shifted under Luke's feet and carried him the wrong way. Luke stepped off without falling, like his body knew how to balance in midair. He landed light on his boots and sighed once. Ron saw it happen and laughed so hard he almost fell over. Hermione tried not to laugh. She failed. Luke looked at them, confused. Then his mouth pulled into a small smile. Not big, but real. "Your school has a sense of humor," Luke said. Harry watched him and felt something in his scar again. A distant pulse, like someone far away was listening. That evening, Dumbledore asked Luke to walk the grounds with him, away from ears and portraits. The grass was cold underfoot. The sky was cloudy. The black lake was flat and dark. Luke walked with his hands clasped behind his back like a soldier. His gaze kept lifting to the sky, as if he expected to see ships. "You wish to go home," Dumbledore said. "Yes," Luke said, honest. "But I don't know how. That tear, it wasn't my choice." "Do you believe it was someone else's choice?" Dumbledore asked. Luke paused. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe it was the Force trying to place me where I'm needed." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled faintly. "That sounds," he said, "very much like something I have heard before, in different words." Luke looked at him. "You're not afraid of me," Luke said. "I am cautious," Dumbledore said, "and I have met many kinds of power. Power is not the problem by itself. The problem is what we do with it." Luke nodded slowly. From the castle, far behind them, a cold wind rose. Luke stopped walking. He did not turn his head. He only shifted his weight, like he had felt an arrow coming before it was fired. Dumbledore felt it too, in his own way. A wrongness, a pull in the air. Luke's voice dropped. "Something hungry," he said. Dumbledore's face tightened. "Dementors," he said. And then, from somewhere beyond the trees, a scream cut through the night. The scream came again, closer. Harry was not outside. He was in the castle, but he felt it anyway. He felt the fear like it was a hand around his throat. He bolted up from his bed in the common room, heart pounding. Ron and Hermione were already awake. "You felt that too?" Hermione asked. Harry did not answer. He was already moving. They ran into the corridor, ignoring the rule that said no one should be out. A few other students were peeking from doors, faces pale. Then the torches dimmed. The air turned cold. Harry's breath puffed white. A slow, scraping sound drifted up from the stairs, like wet cloth dragging over stone. Hermione's voice shook. "They're inside." Harry's scar burned, but the fear was bigger than the scar. This fear was everywhere. A shadow floated into view at the bottom of the stairs. It was tall. It wore a cloak that hid its body. Its face was a hole of darkness. A Dementor. Then another. Then 3 more. Harry's knees went weak. He had faced Dementors before. He knew what they did. They did not kill you fast. They pulled the happiness out of you until you felt like you were drowning in your worst day. Ron made a small choking sound. Hermione raised her wand with a trembling hand. Harry forced his wand up. "Expecto Patronum," he said, but his voice cracked. Nothing happened. The Dementors drifted closer. The cold deepened. The torches went out one by one. Harry heard a woman screaming in his head. He heard his mother. He stumbled back. Then, from the side corridor, a door opened. Luke stepped out. He was not in a robe. He was in the same strange clothes. His hair was still damp, like he had just been splashed again. His face looked tired, like he had barely slept. But his eyes were sharp. He took one look at the Dementors and did not flinch. Harry felt something shift in the air. Not warmth, not light. Something steadier. Luke stepped in front of the kids. He did not raise a wand because he did not have one. He did not shout a spell. He lifted one hand, palm out, and pushed. The Dementors did not fly back like plates. They barely moved. Luke's brow furrowed. He pushed harder. The air trembled. Loose dust lifted from the floor. The Dementors drifted back a few feet, but it was like pushing smoke with your hands. They came forward again. Luke's jaw tightened. "They're not solid," Luke muttered. Hermione's voice was thin. "They don't have bodies," she said. They feed." Luke breathed in slowly, then out. He lowered his hand. He turned his head slightly toward Harry. "Look at me," Luke said. Harry's eyes were wet. His throat hurt. He could barely see straight. "Harry," Luke said again, steady and loud enough to cut through the screams in Harry's head. "Breathe. In. Out. In. Out." Harry tried. His breath shook, but he followed. In. Out. Luke's voice stayed calm. "Think of a moment that is true," Luke said. "Not a fake, happy thought. A true one. Something you would protect." Harry's mind flashed. Fast. A broomstick ride with Ron, laughing so hard he couldn't breathe. Hermione's hand on his arm when he thought he was alone. A warm kitchen in the burrow. Serious for a second, smiling. Harry's eyes widened. He grabbed that memory like a rope. He raised his wand again. "Expecto Patronum!" he shouted. A silver light burst out, thin at first, then stronger. It took shape. A stag, bright and clean, charging down the corridor. The Dementors recoiled at once. The cold broke in a snap. The torches flared back to life. Ron fell against the wall, gasping. Hermione let out a sound that was half laugh and half sob. Luke watched the stag with a stunned look. "That," he said quietly, "is impressive." The Dementors floated back, but they did not leave. They hovered at the far end of the corridor, like they were waiting for something else. Then the castle shook, not from a spell inside, from a blast outside. Dumbledore's voice boomed through the corridor, magically loud. "Students, return to your common rooms at once." The Dementors drifted away, not toward the doors, but toward the nearest window, as if they were being called. Luke's head snapped toward the glass. He felt it again. The hunger. The pull. And behind it, like a knife hidden under a smile. Intent. "Someone is directing them," Luke said. Harry's scar burned hard now. "He's here," Harry whispered. Luke looked at him. "Voldemort," Luke said, and the name sounded like a promise of trouble. They ran. Outside, the night was chaos. Cold mist crawled over the grass. The black lake churned like it was angry. Students were pressed against windows, staring with wide eyes. Near the edge of the grounds, a line of cloaked figures moved like dark marks against the fog. Death Eaters. They were not inside the castle yet, but they were close. Too close. Dumbledore stood near the front steps with his wand raised. McGonagall and Flitwick were beside him. Aurors from the Order were moving into place. Moody's magical eye spun wildly as he tracked shapes in the fog. Luke stepped out onto the steps and felt the whole battlefield at once. It was not like a blaster fight. It was not like a lightsaber duel. It was something stranger. The air itself was full of threats. A scream of green light shot from the fog. It slammed into the stone steps. "Down!" McGonagall shouted. Students behind the doors shrieked. Luke moved before the sound finished. He slid one step to the side, grabbed a first-year boy who had slipped out in panic, and pulled him back with one smooth motion. The next curse hit where the boy had been. The stone exploded. Luke did not even look smug. He only put the child behind him and said, "Stay inside." Then he walked forward. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to Luke. "Don't chase into the fog alone," Dumbledore warned. Luke nodded once. "I won't," he said. But he also did not retreat. A second wave of Dementors flooded in over the grass. Dozens of them. Their cold poured over the grounds like dirty water. Some of the Order members faltered. Even trained adults hated Dementors. They turned bravery into panic. Luke felt the cold hit his skin. He felt memories try to rise, his own worst days, his own failures, the faces he could not save. He closed his eyes for half a second. He breathed in. He breathed out. He opened his eyes again. And his voice stayed calm. "This is not your mind," he told himself quietly. "This is a weapon." He stepped down the stairs. A Death Eater rushed from the fog, wand raised, aiming for Luke's chest. Luke did not draw his lightsaber. He lifted 2 fingers and pulled. The wand yanked out of the Death Eater's hand and flew into Luke's palm like it wanted to escape its owner. The Death Eater froze, shocked. Luke tossed the wand behind him without even looking. "Who are you?" the Death Eater hissed. Luke's face stayed flat. "Someone who's tired of bullies," he said. The Death Eater snarled and threw a cutting curse with his other hand, because he had a second wand hidden. The curse sliced through the air like a sharp wire. Luke leaned back an inch. The curse missed his nose by a hair and hit the stone behind him. Moody swore. "2 wands!" he barked. Luke moved. He crossed the space in a blink, faster than the Death Eater expected. He struck the man's wrist with the edge of his hand. The hidden wand fell. Luke kicked it away. Then he twisted the man's arm just enough to drop him to his knees, not breaking it, not maiming, just stopping. The Death Eater tried to spit a curse word. Luke looked down at him. "Go," Luke said, voice low. The man laughed. "You don't understand," he said. "He wants you." Luke's gaze sharpened. "Then he can come ask," Luke said. Behind Luke, Dumbledore's voice rose, firm. "Expecto Patronum." Silver light burst from Dumbledore's wand, huge and bright. It drove a line through the Dementors like a blade of daylight. Other Order members followed. Patronuses flared across the grounds like shining animals. The Dementors pulled back. But not fully. They wavered like they were being held by a stronger leash. From the fog, a high laugh rang out. Bellatrix Lestrange stepped forward, wild eyes shining. "New toy," she sang. "New toy at Hogwarts!" Harry had reached the doors. He pushed them open without thinking. "Harry!" Hermione shouted, grabbing his arm. Harry yanked free. He stared at Bellatrix like he wanted to burn her with his eyes. Luke felt Harry's anger like a heat spike in the cold. He turned his head. "Stay back," Luke told Harry, not harsh, just steady. Harry's breath shook. "She killed," Harry started. "I know," Luke said. He did not know the details, but he knew the shape of grief in Harry's voice. Bellatrix lifted her wand. "Let's see you dance," she purred. Green light flashed. Not a spell that pushed or cut. A spell meant to end. Luke's eyes widened. Not in fear, but in focus. He did not try to block it with his hand. He did not try to catch it like a solid thing. He moved. The curse missed him by inches and slammed into the grass, leaving a dead, black mark. McGonagall's face went white. "Killing curse," she hissed. Luke's voice stayed calm. "That one is lethal," he said, like he was naming a tool. Bellatrix laughed louder. "Smart boy." Luke's hand snapped out. A chunk of stone ripped free from the steps and shot into the air between Luke and Bellatrix like a fast shield. A second green flash hit the stone and shattered it. Pieces rained down. Luke used the falling rubble like cover. He slid forward through it, closing the distance. Bellatrix's smile did not fade. She loved this. She wanted him close. Luke felt that too. He did not let it pull him in. He reached for her wand with the force. Bellatrix's wand jerked in her grip. Her eyes went wide for the first time. "What?" Luke pulled harder. Her wand flew out of her hand and whipped toward Luke. Bellatrix screamed, not in fear, but in anger, and lunged like she could claw his eyes out. Luke stepped aside and tapped her shoulder with 2 fingers. It looked gentle, but Bellatrix's whole body slammed sideways into the mud like she had been hit by a fast cart. She rolled, laughing even as she spat dirt. "Oh, I like you." Luke did not answer. He turned his head as another Death Eater tried to strike at his back. Luke did not look. His hand lifted behind him. The attacker flew backward into the fog as if the ground had kicked him. Moody stared. "No wand?" he muttered. "No words." Hermione, watching from the doorway, whispered, "It's like he's casting spells with his hands." Ron looked sick. And that green spell, he just moved. Harry's scar burned so hard his vision blurred. He saw it then, like a picture in his mind that wasn't his. A cold face in darkness, red eyes, a smile. Voldemort was watching through Harry. Yes, the thought purred. He moves like he can see the future. Harry staggered. Luke's head snapped toward Harry at once. He felt the shift in Harry's mind. He felt the thin, dirty thread that connected Harry to something else. Luke's eyes narrowed. Then, from the fog, a voice slid out. Not loud, not shouted. It did not need to be. "Luke!" The name hit the air like a hook. Harry froze. Hermione grabbed him. Ron's mouth fell open. Dumbledore's posture changed, just slightly. Snape appeared at the edge of the steps, like he had been born from the shadow. Luke's jaw tightened. He did not know how the voice knew his name, but he knew what it meant. A mind had reached for him. A predator had noticed him. Luke did not answer the voice. He lifted his chin, eyes fixed on the fog. "If you want to talk," Luke said, loud enough for the night to hear, "stop hiding behind monsters." The fog thickened. A shape moved inside it, but did not step out. Instead, the Dementors surged again, like a wave forced forward. Dumbledore's Patronus flared brighter. Others held their lines. The silver light fought the dark. Luke made a choice in a heartbeat. He unclipped the metal tube from his belt. He pressed the button. The green blade snapped to life. The light cut through fog in a clean line. The humming sound cut through fear. Students gasped again behind the doors. Luke did not charge into the Dementors like they were soldiers. He used the blade like a torch. He swept it in wide arcs, not hitting the Dementors, but making a wall of bright movement that pushed them back from the steps. It did not destroy them. It did not solve them. But it gave the defenders space. It gave Harry time to breathe. Harry raised his wand again, eyes wet but fierce. "Expecto Patronum!" he shouted. The stag burst out, stronger than before. It slammed into the Dementors like a bright animal made of pure courage. This time, the Dementors broke. They scattered across the grounds, fleeing from the light. The fog began to thin. The Death Eaters hesitated. Bellatrix, still laughing, rolled onto her back and looked toward the fog like she was listening. Then, as if someone had yanked a rope, the Death Eaters started to retreat. They melted into the trees, into shadows, into hidden paths, not beaten flat, not wiped out, pulled back, like they had come for one reason only, to test, to see, to make sure Luke was real. Luke stood on the wet grass, lightsaber humming, chest rising and falling in slow, controlled breaths. Dumbledore walked down one step, eyes on Luke, then on the fading fog. "This was no random attack," Dumbledore said quietly. Snape's voice was sharp. "They wanted information," he said. They got it. Harry's scar still burned, but now the pain had a shape. Voldemort had looked through him. Voldemort had spoken Luke's name. Luke turned his head toward Harry. His eyes were calm, but they carried a hard truth. "He knows I'm here," Luke said. Harry swallowed. "Yeah," Harry whispered. "And when he wants something, he doesn't stop." Luke looked back at the dark line of trees. The night was quieter now, but it did not feel safe. It felt like the first move in a bigger game. Luke shut off his lightsaber. The green blade vanished. The cold did not fully leave. He clipped the hilt back onto his belt and said very simply, "Then we have work to do." And far away, in a hidden place, Voldemort smiled again. Not because he had won, because he had found a new door, and he was already thinking about how to open it. The castle did not cheer after the attack. It did not feel like a victory. It felt like a warning. By morning, the grass outside was trampled and torn. Bits of broken stone lay near the steps. Professors moved like they had not slept. Order members spoke in low voices, heads close together. Their eyes kept scanning the trees like the trees might answer back. Luke stood at the edge of the courtyard and watched the line where the fog had been. The sky was a dull gray. The wind was cold. He tried to listen, the way he always did when something went wrong. He tried to feel the force the way he did back home. He felt people. He felt fear. He felt anger. He felt pain. But he also felt Hogwarts itself. The castle was not alive like a person, but it was not empty either. It was old and stubborn. It was full of moving parts and hidden corners. It was like walking inside a machine that also had moods. Luke didn't like not understanding the rules. He hated it, actually. He kept his face calm anyway. Behind him, Harry, Ron, and Hermione came out onto the steps. Harry looked like someone had drained him. Ron looked like he wanted to throw up. Hermione looked like she was trying to hold the world together with her brain. Hermione walked up beside Luke and said, "You really moved a killing curse out of the way." Luke kept his eyes on the trees. "I moved the person," he said. "I can't trust that kind of thing. If it hits someone, they die. There's no room for guessing." Harry swallowed. "That's what it does," he said, voice flat. "It kills." Luke finally looked at Harry. He saw the tight jaw, the shaking hands that Harry kept trying to hide. Luke nodded once. "Then we don't let it hit you," he said. Ron let out a short, shaky laugh. "Brilliant plan," he said. "Why didn't we think of that?" Luke glanced at Ron, confused for a second, then caught the tone. Ron was scared and joking at the same time. Luke understood that. He had met pilots like that. Luke said, "If you have a better plan, I'm listening." Ron blinked. Then he actually smiled, just a little. "Right. Yeah. Good," he muttered. Hermione looked at the castle doors like they might explode open. "The Ministry will come," she said. Harry's face tightened. "They'll say it didn't happen," he said. "Or they'll say it was Dumbledore. Or me." Luke's brow lowered. "They'll lie," he said, not as a question. Hermione's lips pressed into a thin line. "They've been doing it all year," she said. Luke's hand drifted near the lightsaber at his belt, then stopped. He forced it away again. The weapon was not the problem. The problem was what people did with fear. Dumbledore stepped out onto the steps behind them. His eyes looked tired, but his back was straight. He spoke in a calm voice that still made the space around him feel steady. "Classes will continue," Dumbledore said. "Students will be watched more closely, and no one leaves the castle alone." A few students nearby groaned. Dumbledore lifted a hand. "I know you are afraid," he said, "and I know you are angry. But fear makes people careless. Careless gets people hurt." Luke watched Dumbledore speak and felt something familiar. Not the same as the Jedi Council, not the same as the rebel leaders, but the same weight. A leader holding a room together with words, because the room would break without them. When Dumbledore finished, he looked at Luke, and the look was quiet, private. "We will talk," the look said. Luke nodded once. He turned to go, and the castle did what it always did. A portrait started yelling at another portrait. A suit of armor clanked like it was laughing, and Peeves, somewhere in the hallway, shouted, "Oh, the shiny sword man is famous now!" Luke closed his eyes for 1 second. He exhaled slowly. He had tried to find a quiet moment all night. He had failed. It was going to be that kind of place. Dolores Umbridge did not sleep either. She sat at her little desk in her little office that smelled like fake flowers and control. She wrote with a sharp pink quill. She wrote like she was pinning butterflies to a board. She did not write attack. She wrote incident. She did not write Dementors in the castle. She wrote unverified disturbances. She did not write Death Eaters. She wrote possible criminal trespassers. And she wrote one name again and again in her head, like she was tasting it. Luke. She did not know his full name. She did not know where he came from. She did not know what his glowing weapon was. But she knew what he was. A problem. A problem for rules. A problem for power. A problem for her. And problems were meant to be handled. Not with bravery. Not with kindness. With papers. With committees. With fear. By lunch, she had sent 3 owls to the ministry. By dinner, she was smiling again. By the next morning, the front doors of Hogwarts opened, and Cornelius Fudge arrived with a group of officials and 2 Aurors. They walked like they owned the stone under their feet. They did not look at students as kids. They looked at them as a crowd. Fudge's hat sat too tight on his head. His eyes were tired and sharp. His mouth held a fake smile that did not reach his cheeks. Umbridge swept to greet him. "Minister," she said sweetly. "Thank goodness you've come. The situation is worse than I feared." Dumbledore came down the steps to meet them. McGonagall was with him. Snape was just behind, quiet as a knife. And Luke walked down as well. The courtyard went silent as soon as students saw Luke near the headmaster. Whispers started anyway. "Look, it's him. Is that the sword thing? He doesn't have a wand. He fought them." Fudge's eyes landed on Luke and narrowed. Luke stood still. He did not bow. He did not smile. He watched the minister like he would watch a general from an enemy army, but without hate, just alert. Fudge cleared his throat. "Headmaster," he said, "we have received troubling reports." Dumbledore's voice stayed smooth. "I am sure you have received many reports," he said. Fudge's smile tightened. "This, man," he said, glancing at Luke like Luke was a suspicious package, "appeared during dinner. Then there was a disturbance. Dementors. Panic. Injuries. No one died," Dumbledore said. "Not the point," Fudge snapped, then softened fast. "Not the point. Hogwarts cannot become a circus." Umbridge put a hand to her chest. "Oh, Cornelius, the children were terrified," she said. Harry, watching from behind a pillar with Ron and Hermione, clenched his fists. Hermione grabbed his sleeve to stop him from stepping out. Luke's eyes flicked, just once, toward where Harry stood. Luke did not point Harry out. He did not expose him. Luke looked back at Fudge. "Your guards," Luke said, calm, "are the Dementors." Fudge's face went red. "They are under ministry control," he snapped. Luke did not blink. "They were inside the castle," Luke said. "They were near children." Fudge's nostrils flared. "We do not take orders from a stranger?" Luke finished for him. Fudge's eyes flashed. "Yes," he said. "A stranger with a dangerous weapon." Luke's hand rested near the lightsaber hilt, not gripping, just there. Fudge pointed at it. "That," he said, "must be surrendered for safety." Luke's voice stayed even. "No," he said. It was one word. Simple. Fudge looked offended like Luke had slapped him. Umbridge leaned in with her smile. "Now, "Now," she said to Luke, like she was speaking to a naughty student. "We all make sacrifices for public safety." Luke looked at her. He felt something in her. Not strength, not courage, control. He had seen control like that before, in officers who smiled while they crushed people. Luke said, "I don't give my weapon to people I don't trust." Umbridge's smile froze for a fraction of a second. Fudge turned to Dumbledore. "You see?" he said, defiant. "Armed. Unknown. This is exactly what I warned about. Headmaster, I am placing the man under ministry custody until we can confirm his identity." Dumbledore's eyes stayed gentle. His voice did not rise. "No," Dumbledore said. Fudge's mouth fell open. "No? No," Dumbledore repeated. "You will not take him." Fudge stepped forward. The two Aurors shifted, hands near their wands. Snape's eyes tracked the Aurors like he was counting angles. Luke stayed still, but the air around him felt tighter, like the room was waiting. Dumbledore continued. "You may investigate. You may ask questions. But you will not seize someone under my protection without cause." Fudge's voice went sharp. "The cause is that he arrived through a tear in reality, and then Dementors attacked the school." Luke's eyes narrowed. "I didn't call them," Luke said. Fudge threw up his hands. "How convenient." Dumbledore's voice turned slightly colder. "Minister," he said, "your Dementors should never have been near Hogwarts. That is the first cause we should discuss." Umbridge gasped like she was shocked, though her eyes gleamed. Fudge's face twisted. "This is not about Dementors," he said through clenched teeth. "This is about order. This is about control." Luke's head tilted a little. "You just said it out loud," Luke said. A few students behind the window snorted before catching themselves. Fudge heard it. His face hardened. He jabbed a finger at Luke. "Very well," he said. "If he will not cooperate, then he will be treated as a threat." Dumbledore's wand was still not raised, but his presence sharpened. "Careful," McGonagall said, voice low, like a warning bell. Fudge looked around, seeing faces watching him, seeing teachers who would not step aside. He did not like that. He took a step back and forced a smile again. "We will speak inside," he said. "In private." Dumbledore nodded. "Of course," he said. As they turned to go, Umbridge's eyes slid to Luke. She smiled softly, like she was already writing his name on a list. Severus Snape watched the meeting end with a cold knot in his stomach. He did not trust Fudge. He did not trust Umbridge. He did not trust Dumbledore's hope. And he did not trust Luke. Not because Luke looked evil, because Luke looked controlled. Snape knew what controlled power could become if it snapped. He had watched good people break. He had watched strong people turn cruel when they believed they were right. He had lived under Voldemort. He knew what hunger for power felt like in a room. Luke did not have that hunger, which made him harder. Snape followed as the minister's group moved inside. His black robes swept the floor like shadows. He watched Luke's posture. He watched Luke's eyes. There were moments, small moments, where Luke's gaze drifted away, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. Snape did not like that. In a quiet corridor, Dumbledore slowed just enough for Snape to fall into step beside him. "This is escalating," Snape said, voice low. Dumbledore did not look at him. "Yes," Dumbledore said. "You are keeping him here," Snape said. "You are placing a new weapon in the middle of a war." Dumbledore's tone stayed calm. "I am keeping a person here," he said. Snape's lips curled. "A person who can pull wands from hands without speaking," Snape said. "A person who carries a blade of light. A person who resists a killing curse with speed, not spells. A person whose presence drew Dementors into the castle." Dumbledore stopped walking. He finally looked at Snape. "You think Luke caused it," Dumbledore said. "I think he is a beacon," Snape said, "whether he wants to be or not." Dumbledore's eyes softened, but his voice stayed firm. "A beacon can guide people home," he said. "Or it can draw sharks." Snape's gaze hardened. "Then we should not keep a beacon in a school full of children," he said. Dumbledore's face did not change. "We don't get to choose the war we are in," he said quietly. "We only choose how we fight it." Snape did not answer. He was already choosing. He would watch Luke. He would learn his habits. He would plan for the moment Luke might become a problem. Because Snape did not survive by trusting hope. He survived by preparing for disaster. Harry sat on the edge of his bed that night and felt the anger buzzing in his skin. He had watched Fudge. He had watched Umbridge. He had watched them try to grab Luke like Luke was a broom they could take away. Harry's hands shook. He wanted to punch something. He wanted to scream. He wanted to do something that made the pressure in his chest stop. Hermione sat nearby with a stack of books, but she was not reading. Ron sat on the rug, staring at nothing. Luke stood near the window, like the room was too small for him. He was a guest in the Gryffindor boys' dorm for a few minutes, only because Dumbledore allowed it, and McGonagall was in the hallway like a guard. Luke had said he wanted to speak to Harry privately, but not alone. He had asked for friends to be there. That mattered to Harry more than he expected. Luke looked out at the dark grounds. The moonlight was weak behind clouds. Then Luke turned, and his eyes met Harry's. "You're angry," Luke said. Harry's jaw tightened. "No," he lied. Luke nodded once. "Okay," Luke said, like he didn't need the lie to stop him. Harry hated that. He hated how calm Luke was. Harry snapped. "How are you not angry? They tried to take you. They treat everyone like dirt. They pretend Voldemort isn't back even when people are dying." Ron flinched at the name. Hermione's eyes flicked to the door, like saying it too loud might summon Umbridge. Luke listened. He did not argue. He let Harry spill the fire. When Harry ran out of words, Luke spoke softly. "I get it," Luke said. "I've seen leaders lie to keep power." Harry stared. "Yeah? And what did you do?" he demanded. Luke's face tightened for a moment. It was a small crack in the calm. "I fought," Luke said, "but not the way my anger wanted." Harry's scar throbbed, like it liked this talk, like it wanted to twist it. Luke stepped closer. "Slow. There's something else," Luke said. "Something connected to you." Harry's throat went dry. "I know," he said. Luke's voice stayed gentle. "When the voice spoke my name," Luke said, "I felt it. Not in the air." "In you," Hermione whispered. "The link." Harry's hands curled into fists. "He gets in my head," Harry said. "He sees through my eyes." Luke nodded. "That's dangerous," Luke said. Harry laughed once, sharp. "No kidding." Luke's gaze held Harry's. "Anger is a door," Luke said. "It feels strong. It feels like armor. But it's also a handle someone else can grab." Harry's eyes stung. "So what? I'm supposed to be calm while he ruins everything?" Luke's voice stayed steady. "No," Luke said. "You're supposed to choose." Harry blinked. "Choose what?" "Choose what kind of person you are when you're scared," Luke said. "When you're hurt. When someone dares you to hate." Harry's chest rose and fell too fast. "You don't understand," he said. Luke's face softened. "You're right," Luke said. "I don't know your life. But I know what it's like to feel darkness pulling at you." Ron stared at Luke. "You?" Ron blurted. Luke nodded. "Yes," he said simply. Hermione's voice was careful. "Did you nearly turn?" Luke took a slow breath. "I nearly chose the easy path," he said. "The path that feels like control. The path that says, You can hurt people to protect people." Harry's scar burned, like it was listening very closely. Luke looked at Harry again. "Your enemy will try to make you angry," Luke said. "Not because anger makes you weak, because anger makes you predictable." Harry swallowed. He hated it, but it made sense, Hermione said quietly. "That's what he does," Luke nodded. "So here's my advice," Luke said. "Keep training. Keep fighting. But don't let your anger drive the ship." Harry stared at the floor. "And if I can't stop it," he whispered. Luke's voice turned softer. "Then you don't do it alone," he said. "You use your friends. You tell the truth. You ask for help before it's too late." Ron's ears went red, but he nodded. Hermione's eyes shone, but she blinked fast and looked away. Harry's throat tightened. For a second, the pressure in his chest eased. Not gone. Just shared. Luke stepped back toward the window again. "Tomorrow," he said. "Show me how you train." Hermione blinked. "You mean defense class?" Harry snorted. "That's not training," he said. Luke's brow lowered. "Then show me what is," he said. Ron shifted. "We sort of have a thing," he said. Hermione shot Ron a warning look. Luke glanced at them. "A secret group," he said. Ron's mouth fell open. "How did you—" Luke tapped his chest lightly. "People feel loud when they're hiding something," he said. Hermione looked both impressed and annoyed. Harry stared at Luke and realized something. Luke did not just have power. He had practice being hunted. He had practice being the one people watched and feared. That made Harry feel less alone. And that scared him too, because it meant the war was bigger than he thought. The next night, the room of requirement opened like it had been waiting. Harry led the way, heart hammering. Hermione and Ron followed. A few other DA members came too, faces tense but curious. When they stepped inside, the room had changed. It was not the usual practice room with cushions and dummies. Tonight it had tall wooden posts, balance beams, a wide-open floor, a few plain mats, and along one wall, a row of simple chairs. Luke stood near the center, arms folded, studying the space like he was checking a battlefield. Neville Longbottom stared at the posts. "Did we ask it for this?" he whispered. Hermione whispered back. "I think it listened to Luke." Ron muttered. "The room has better judgment than Umbridge." Luke turned. "Everyone," Luke said. The room quieted at once. Luke's voice was calm, but it carried. "I'm not here to replace your magic," Luke said, "and I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here because you're training to protect yourselves." Harry felt his stomach twist. Luke saying it out loud made it feel more real. Luke walked to a wooden post and tapped it. "When fear hits," Luke said, "your body changes. Your hands shake. Your breathing gets fast. You rush." A few students nodded. Cho Chang swallowed hard. Luke continued, "You can't stop fear from showing up. But you can choose what you do next." Hermione's eyes locked onto him like she was taking notes without paper. Luke said, "First lesson. Breathing." Ron looked like he wanted to groan, but he didn't. Luke raised a hand. "In," he said. They breathed in. "Out," Luke said. They breathed out. Luke walked among them slowly as they repeated it. He did not touch anyone. He just watched posture and tension. He stopped near Harry. Harry's shoulders were high. His jaw was tight. Luke said quietly, "Lower your shoulders." Harry did. It helped more than Harry wanted to admit. Luke moved to Hermione. Her face was focused, but her breath was too fast. Luke said, "Slow it down." Hermione slowed. Luke stepped back and said, "Now, a simple drill." He showed them how to stand, how to keep weight balanced, how to move one step without tripping. Ron whispered, "This is like Quidditch practice, but without the fun." Hermione whispered, "Shut up." Luke heard them anyway. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened. Then Luke did something that made every student freeze. He held out his hand, palm up. A small pebble lifted from the floor and hovered above his skin. Gasps echoed. Lavender Brown whispered, "No wand." Luke looked at them. "This is not a trick," he said. "It's focus." He let the pebble drift to the side, then set it down gently. "Magic is powerful," Luke said, "but your mind is your first tool. If someone can shake your mind, they can shake everything." Harry felt a cold memory of Dementors. Luke looked at Harry like he knew exactly what Harry was thinking. Then the door at the far end of the room banged open. Everyone jumped. A cat's angry yowl echoed. Filch stumbled in with Mrs. Norris, eyes wide. "I heard voices," he shouted. "I heard—" He stopped when he saw Luke. Filch's mouth fell open. Luke stared back, confused. Mrs. Norris hissed at Luke like she hated him on sight. Filch backed up fast. "Nope," he muttered. "Nope. No, no." He slammed the door and ran. For a second, the whole room was silent. Then Ron burst out laughing. Hermione tried to keep a straight face and failed. Even Harry let out a short breath that might have been a laugh. Luke blinked. "Was that normal?" he asked. Harry wiped his eyes. "Sadly, yes," he said. Luke nodded slowly. "This place is loud," he said, as if that explained everything. The laughter didn't fix the war, but it made the fear crack for a moment, and that mattered. That same night, far from Hogwarts, Lord Voldemort sat in darkness and listened. He did not need ears. He felt the world through threads of fear, pain, and magic. He felt it through the link that tied him to Harry Potter like a cut that never healed. He had tasted the new presence at Hogwarts, not wizard power, something else. Quiet, deep, like a lake under ice. Voldemort did not like what he did not understand. He also wanted it. Bellatrix knelt nearby, smiling like she had just been given a gift. "My lord," she breathed, "did you feel him? Did you see him move?" Voldemort's lips curled. "Yes," he said softly. "I saw." Bellatrix's eyes shone. "He is beautiful," she said, voice shaking with excitement. "A new kind of fighter. A new kind of tool," Voldemort corrected. Bellatrix giggled. "Yes, my lord." Voldemort's fingers traced the air, slow. "He does not fight like a wizard," he said. "He does not speak words. He does not need a wand." Bellatrix leaned forward. "Then we should take his hand," she said eagerly. "Cut it off and keep it," Voldemort's eyes flashed. "No," he said, cold. Bellatrix froze. Voldemort continued. "He is controlled. He will not be taken by brute force. Not yet." Bellatrix's smile returned. Smaller now. "Then how?" she whispered. Voldemort's voice turned smooth again. "We don't strike his body," Voldemort said. "We strike his choices." Bellatrix tilted her head. "Choices?" Voldemort's red eyes narrowed. "Every strong person has a weak door," he said. "Fear, love, pride, hope." Bellatrix licked her lips. "We can break hope," she said. Voldemort's smile widened. "Yes," he said. "We can." He leaned back and closed his eyes. Through Harry's link, he had felt it clearly. Luke Skywalker had a bright center, but around that bright center was pain. Old pain, a father in darkness, a teacher lost, a war that never fully leaves your bones. Voldemort whispered, almost pleased. "He can be pushed." Bellatrix shivered. "Tell me what to do," she said. Voldemort opened his eyes. "Place a hook," he said. "Not in the Great Hall. Not where Dumbledore can see it coming." Bellatrix smiled. "The forest," she whispered. Voldemort's smile sharpened. "Yes," he said. The forest. Ancient magic. Old fear. A place where children get lost. Bellatrix laughed softly. "And when he comes?" she asked. Voldemort's voice turned like silk over steel. "Then we show him what he is," he said, "and we see what he becomes." Ron Weasley decided on the third day after the attack that Luke Skywalker was a magnet for weird things. Luke tried to sit in an empty hallway early in the morning. Ron had followed, mostly because Ron couldn't sleep, and also because Ron was curious. Luke sat cross-legged on the stone floor, back straight, eyes closed. Ron whispered to Hermione, who had come to with a book. "Is he meditating?" Hermione whispered back, "Yes. Be quiet." Ron tried to be quiet. It lasted 12 seconds. A portrait of a knight started snoring loudly. Luke's eyes did not open. His breathing stayed slow. Then a second portrait started yelling at the first one to stop snoring. Then Peeves floated by upside down and shouted, "Oh, is Shiny Sword Man doing sleepy sitting? I can do sleepy sitting!" Peeves made loud fake snores right next to Luke's ear. Ron watched Luke's hand twitch. Luke's eyes still did not open. Luke breathed in, breathed out. Peeves got bored when there was no angry reaction. He drifted away, grumbling. Ron leaned closer to Hermione and whispered, "He's either the calmest person alive or he's about to explode." Hermione whispered, "He's choosing not to." Ron stared at Luke like Luke was some kind of puzzle. Just as the hallway finally went quiet again, the moving stairs nearby shifted with a loud groan and slid into a new place, blocking the corridor with a wall of stone steps. Ron jumped. Hermione sighed. Luke opened his eyes at last and looked at the staircase. It was like the castle was saying, "No peace for you." Luke stared at it for a long second, then shut his eyes again. Ron whispered, "I give him 5 minutes." Hermione whispered, "Ron?" Ron whispered back, "What? I'm not being mean. I'm impressed." Luke spoke without opening his eyes. 5 minutes is generous," he said. Ron yelped. Hermione slapped Ron's arm. Luke's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Ron decided he liked Luke more for that. And then Ron remembered the Death Eaters, and Ron felt sick again. Because liking someone in a war meant you could lose them. In the days that followed, Hogwarts tightened like a fist. Umbridge added rules like she breathed air, more patrols, more inspections, more little squads of older students acting like they were tiny police. Posters appeared in corridors, warning students about dangerous gatherings and unapproved visitors. One poster had a sketch that looked a bit like Luke and a lot like a scarecrow. Hermione tore it down the moment she saw it. Umbridge caught her in the act and smiled like she had been waiting. "Miss Granger," Umbridge said sweetly. "Vandalism is against school rules." Hermione's eyes flashed. "So is letting Dementors into a school," she snapped. Umbridge's smile didn't move. "Mind your tone," she said. Luke had been walking past at that moment. He stopped. Hermione's heart jumped. Part of her wanted Luke to keep walking. Part of her wanted him to step in. Luke looked at Umbridge. Umbridge looked up at him with her perfect smile. "Mr. Luke," she said, as if the name itself was a joke. Luke's voice was calm. "Don't talk to her like that," he said. Umbridge's eyes widened a little. "Pardon?" she said. Luke's gaze stayed steady. "You're using rules like a weapon," Luke said, "and you're enjoying it." Umbridge's smile hardened. "I am enforcing safety," she said. Luke tilted his head. "Safety doesn't sound like that," he said. Umbridge's voice stayed sweet. "Ah," she said, "you are not from our world, are you? You don't understand how things must be done here." Luke stepped closer, just one step. Hermione held her breath. Luke said, "In my world, people said that too." Umbridge's smile flickered again. Well, she said, I will be reporting this conversation. Luke nodded once. Okay, he said. He didn't look scared. That made Umbridge angry in a way she could not show. She turned and swept away, her heels clicking like little threats. Hermione stared at Luke. You shouldn't do that, she whispered. Luke looked down at her. Why not? He asked. Hermione swallowed. Because she'll target you, she said. Luke's eyes softened. She already is, he said. Hermione didn't know what to say to that. Luke glanced at the torn poster in Hermione's hand. Is that supposed to be me? He asked. Hermione looked at it and snorted. It looks like a broom with a face, she said. Luke nodded. Not accurate, he said, dead serious. Hermione laughed, short and surprised. Then her laughter died when she remembered why the posters existed. Luke saw the shift in her face. He said quietly, I'll train you better than posters can scare you. Hermione nodded once, hard. Yes, she said. Luke found the room of requirement again 2 nights later. He did not go for comfort. He went for work. He stood in front of the wall and focused. He needed a place to train, a place to build, a place to think. The door appeared. When he walked in, he found a workshop. There was a long table. Tools he did not recognize sat neatly arranged anyway. Rolls of cloth, metal pieces, a small set of stones that looked like crystals, each one glowing faintly in a different color. Luke stopped. He felt the force stir in the stones, not like a kyber crystal exactly, but not dead either. Hermione came in behind him, eyes wide. Oh my, she breathed, then caught herself. This room is incredible. Ron followed, looking suspicious. It's like it knows what you want, he said. Luke walked to the stones and held his hand near them without touching. He felt something, a hum, a pull, a quiet answer. Hermione watched his face. You can feel them, she whispered. Luke nodded. Yes, he said. They're alive in a way. Hermione's mind raced. Magical cores, she whispered, or some sort of enchanted mineral. But that's not how. Luke looked at her. It doesn't have to match your rules, he said gently. It just has to work. He turned to the table and unclipped his lightsaber. He did not ignite it. He opened a panel on the hilt with practiced hands. Hermione leaned forward, fascinated. Ron leaned back, nervous. Luke's fingers moved with calm skill. It took water on the grounds, he said. Ron blinked. From the mud? He asked. Luke nodded. And from a ghost throwing water at me, he said. Ron threw his hands up. Peeves is not a ghost, he said. He's worse. Luke looked at Ron. Noted, Luke said. Hermione almost smiled, then leaned in again. You're repairing it, she asked. Luke nodded. I can keep it running, he said. But I want a backup part. I don't like having one tool in a war. Hermione nodded hard. Redundancy, she said. Yes, of course. Ron stared. Are we making a second glowing sword? He asked, voice cracking. Luke shook his head. Not a full one, he said. Just a stabilizer part. Something that keeps the energy channel steady. Hermione's eyes were shining. Can magic help? She asked. Luke looked at her. That's why I want you here, he said. Hermione's cheeks went pink. She tried to hide it by pulling out a book. Luke set small metal pieces on the table and began to work. The room stayed quiet for almost a whole minute. Then, somewhere in the walls, a loud banging started, like pipes fighting each other. Ron groaned. The castle is allergic to silence, he muttered. Luke did not even look up. I'm starting to notice, he said. Hermione whispered. That's the running joke now. You trying to meditate? Luke blinked. Running joke? He asked. Ron grinned. People are placing bets, he said. Luke stared at him. They're betting on my piece, Luke said flatly. Ron nodded. Yep, he said proudly. Luke looked offended for a second. Then his mouth twitched again. If I win, Luke said, do I get the money? Ron laughed. Now you're thinking like a wizard, he said. Hermione rolled her eyes. We're not gambling, she said. Ron muttered, tell that to Seamus. Luke shook his head and went back to his work. His calm did not mean he wasn't worried. It meant he was choosing what to show. Hermione's hunt for answers turned into a mission. If Luke needed a crystal that could handle his lightsaber's power, Hermione was going to find one. She didn't care if the books fought her. She sat in the library with stacks taller than her head. She read about enchanted gems, about goblin-made metal, about runes that held power, about old charms that stored light. She tried to match wizard words to Luke's simple description. Focus, Luke had said. Stability, not exploding. Hermione tapped her quill against her notes. So you need something that channels energy without shattering, she whispered. A voice behind her said, dreamy. Maybe you need a moonstone that's been sung to sleep. Hermione jumped. Luna Lovegood sat down like she had always been there. Hermione blinked. Luna, she said slowly, what are you doing here? Luna smiled. Reading, she said. She held up a magazine upside down. Hermione ignored it. We're looking for crystals, Hermione said. Luna tilted her head. Crystals like the ones under the old tree line? She asked. Hermione froze. What? She said. Luna nodded like this was normal. There are places in the forest where the ground hums, she said. It's very loud if you listen quietly. Hermione's stomach tightened. The forest. The place Voldemort would choose. Hermione's quill snapped in her hand. Luna blinked at the broken quill. Oh dear, she said. Hermione forced her voice calm. Luna, she said, how do you know that? Luna shrugged. I walk sometimes, she said. When I can. The trees don't lie as much as people. Hermione swallowed. She stood up fast and grabbed her notes. She did not like that her answer pointed toward danger. But Hermione had learned something this year. Ignoring danger did not make it go away. It just made it sneak up on you. Harry felt the pull before Hermione even found him. It started as a small itch behind his eyes. Then it turned into a tight pressure in his skull. Then his scar burned. He was walking back from dinner when it hit. He grabbed the wall and sucked in air. Ron swore. Hermione grabbed his arm. Harry's voice came out rough. He's thinking about me, he whispered. Luke stepped out of a side corridor like he had been waiting nearby. He took one look at Harry's face and moved close. Breathe, Luke said at once. In. Out. Harry tried. The burning eased, but the feeling stayed, like a finger tapping inside his head. Hermione's voice was tight. We found something, she said quickly to Luke. The forest. There might be crystals that could help your stabilizer part. But it feels wrong. Luke's eyes narrowed. Wrong how? He asked. Hermione swallowed. Like it's a hook, she said. Luke stared at her for a beat, then nodded. It probably is, he said. Ron's voice went high. Then we don't go, he said. Luke looked at Ron. If it's a hook, Luke said, it's already in the water. Harry's scar pulsed again. Harry swallowed. He wants me to go, Harry whispered. Luke's face hardened. He wants us to go, Luke corrected. Hermione's eyes flicked around the corridor. Umbridge has patrols, she whispered. We can't just… We're not going alone, Luke said. Ron's mouth fell open. You're coming, Ron said, half relief and half panic. Luke nodded. Yes, he said. Hermione's voice was thin. That might be what Voldemort wants, she said. Luke looked at her. He doesn't get to choose the board, Luke said. Only the move. Harry looked up at Luke. "We're going into the forest," he said, like he was testing it. Luke nodded once. "Tonight," he said. Harry's heart pounded. Fear rose. Anger rose with it. And under all of it, a small spark of hope. Because this time, he wouldn't be alone. They left after curfew, not because they were brave, because they were tired of being hunted inside their own home. Luke moved quietly through the hallways, like he had been trained for it. He stepped where floorboards didn't creak. He paused before corners, listening. Harry followed, trying to copy him. Hermione followed, clutching her wand like it was part of her hand. Ron followed, whispering prayers he pretended were jokes. At one hallway, a group of students in Umbridge's little squad marched past, lanterns high. Luke pulled the group back into a shadowed alcove. They held their breath. The squad walked by, talking about points and detentions like the world wasn't on fire. When they were gone, Ron exhaled and whispered, "I hate them." Luke glanced at Ron. "Focus," Luke whispered. Ron nodded, cheeks red. They reached the entrance hall. They slipped out a side door and moved across the grounds. The night air bit at Harry's face. The trees of the forbidden forest loomed ahead like a wall. Harry's scar burned again, stronger. Hermione whispered. "It's worse," she said. Luke stopped at the edge of the trees. He didn't rush in. He stood still and closed his eyes. Harry watched him. Even in the dark, Luke's calm seemed to shape the air around him. Luke breathed in, breathed out. Then his eyes opened, and they were sharp. "Something is waiting," Luke said quietly. Ron's voice shook. "Like what?" he whispered. Luke's jaw tightened. "A trap," he said. Harry's scar pulsed like it agreed. Luke looked at Harry. "If you feel him," Luke said, "tell me the second it gets worse." Harry nodded. They stepped into the forest. The trees swallowed the moonlight. The ground was damp. Roots rose like tripwires. Strange sounds echoed far away. Hermione whispered, "We should be careful," as if anyone needed the reminder. They moved deeper. Then Luke stopped again, head tilting. Ron whispered, "What is it?" Luke whispered back, "Listen." Harry listened. At first he heard nothing but leaves. Then he heard it. A soft, slow sound, like breathing. Not theirs. The group turned toward it. A small clearing opened ahead. In the center of the clearing sat a stone, low and flat, like an old altar. And on the stone was a black object. A pendant. It looked simple. It looked like it had been dropped by accident. Hermione's voice was a hiss. "That's not an accident," she whispered. Luke's face was still. "It's calling," he said. Harry's scar burned hard enough to make him wince. Hermione grabbed his sleeve. "Harry," she whispered. Harry's voice came out rough. "I know," he said. "I know it's a trap." And still, his feet wanted to move. Luke stepped in front of him at once. "No," Luke said. Firm. Harry's eyes flashed. "It's him," Harry said. "He's there." Luke's voice stayed low. "I believe you," he said. "But you don't walk into a hook just because you see the line." Luke stepped forward. Slow, controlled. He did not touch the pendant. He reached out with the force. The pendant vibrated slightly on the stone. Luke's brow furrowed. He felt magic in it. Cold magic. Hungry magic. It did not feel like the force. It felt like a hand trying to grab his mind. Luke's jaw tightened. He pulled back. The pendant did not move. Instead, the air changed. The clearing grew colder. The shadows under the trees thickened. And something stepped out from the darkness behind the stone. Not a person. A shape. A tall shape with a cloak. Harry's throat closed. It wasn't a Dementor, but it had the same kind of wrong feeling. Hermione's voice shook. "Boggart," she whispered. "It changes," The shape moved. The air rippled. And then the shape became something else. For Hermione, it became McGonagall's face, twisted in disappointment, saying, "You failed." Hermione flinched, like the words hit her. For Ron, it became a giant spider, legs clicking, eyes shining. Ron gagged and stumbled back. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." For Harry, the shadows became a tall, pale man with red eyes and a thin smile. Voldemort. Harry's scar screamed. Harry's body froze. The Voldemort shape lifted a wand. Hermione shouted, "Ridiculous!" Her spell hit the shape, and the Voldemort shape flickered for a second. But it didn't break like a normal boggart. It held. It felt stronger. It felt fed. Luke stepped forward, putting himself between Harry and the shape. The boggart's head turned toward Luke, and then it changed again. Luke's stomach dropped. It became Darth Vader, the black mask, the tall body, the steady mechanical breathing. Luke's heart slammed against his ribs. This was not just fear. This was memory. Luke's hand twitched toward his lightsaber. He stopped himself. Vader's voice came out of the mask, low and cold. "Luke," it said. Luke's throat tightened. He had seen his father's face behind that mask. He had seen the man inside. But this thing did not care about truth. It cared about pain. Luke's mind flashed to the Emperor, to the throne room, to the moment rage had surged through him and his blade had hacked at Vader's armor. Luke's hand started to shake. He hated that. He hated that it still lived in him. Hermione shouted again, "Ridiculous!" Her spell hit Vader and made the mask stretch for a second like rubber. For a moment it looked almost silly. Then the mask snapped back into place. The boggart did not weaken. It grew sharper. Like something was helping it. Like someone far away was smiling. Luke felt it then. A second pressure. A real mind pressing into the clearing. Not the boggart. Something behind it. Voldemort. Luke's eyes narrowed. The Vader shape lifted a hand, as if it had the Force too. Luke knew it wasn't real, but his body reacted anyway. That was the point. Luke took a slow breath. He forced himself to look past the mask. He forced himself to remember the truth. "My father chose," Luke said softly. "And I chose." The Vader shape stepped closer. Luke felt anger rise, hot and fast. He wanted to cut the mask in half. He wanted to end it. Harry's voice cracked behind him. "Luke!" Luke didn't turn. "Breathe," he said, not just to Harry. To himself, too. He breathed in. Breathed out. And then Luke did something simple. He did not attack. He did not run. He reached into the Force and pulled the pendant off the stone. The pendant flew into his hand. The moment his fingers closed around it, cold magic surged into him like ice water. Images slammed into his mind. A school burning. Children screaming. Harry dead on the ground. Luke standing over bodies with a red lightsaber. Luke's own face pale and hard, like Vader's. Luke's breath hitched. His grip tightened. For half a second, the anger spiked so high it made his vision blur. And then Luke felt Hermione grab his wrist. Her hand was small, but it was real. "Luke!" she whispered, voice shaking. "Drop it." Ron's voice was panicked. "Mate, please!" Harry's voice was raw. "It's lying!" Luke stared at the pendant. He could crush it. He could throw it. But the cold magic was inside his skin now. It was trying to pull him. Luke's jaw clenched. He closed his eyes. He did the one thing the dark side hated. He let himself feel the fear without letting it drive him. He opened his eyes again, and he threw the pendant onto the stone. Hermione shouted, "Bombarda!" The stone exploded. The pendant shattered into black pieces. The cold pressure snapped. The Vader shape flickered. The boggart screamed, not in sound, but in feeling. and shrank back, losing its grip. For a moment, the clearing warmed. Ron sagged with relief. Hermione's knees shook, but she stayed standing. Harry's scar still burned, but the voice in his head pulled away like a snake slipping into a hole. Luke exhaled slowly. He looked at his hands. They were still shaking. He hated that too. Then the forest erupted with movement. Figures burst from the trees. Not boggarts, people, cloaks, masks, wands raised, Death Eaters. Ron made a choking sound. "Of course," he whispered. "Of course it's them." A curse blasted toward Hermione. Luke moved without thinking. He yanked Hermione backward with the force, pulling her out of the path. The curse hit a tree and blew bark into the air. Harry shouted, "Protego!" A shield flared, weak but real. Hermione fired back. "Stupefy!" A red bolt hit a Death Eater and knocked him off his feet. More curses came. Green, red, white. The clearing turned into flashing light and flying dirt. Luke ignited his lightsaber. The green blade snapped to life and filled the clearing with bright color. Ron's eyes went huge. "Oh, yep, okay," he stammered. Luke stepped forward. He did not rush into the trees. He held the blade angled and used the force to feel where curses came from. A curse flew in from the right. Luke moved one step left. It missed. Another curse came from behind. Luke lifted his hand and shoved the caster backward into a tree trunk with a hard slam. Not dead. Just stopped. Two Death Eaters charged closer, trying to overwhelm him with spells from short range. Luke didn't try to block the curses with the blade like they were blaster bolts. He didn't know if the blade could even do that safely. Instead, he changed the field. He ripped up a chunk of earth between them. A slab of dirt and roots rose like a wall. Spells hit the dirt and sprayed sparks. Luke leapt over the wall and landed behind the Death Eaters. He struck the first wand with the flat of his blade, slicing it clean in half. The wand fell, smoking. He kicked the second wand away. The second Death Eater swung a fist, panicked. Luke grabbed the wrist, twisted, and put the man face down in the mud. Harry and Hermione fought on the left side, covering each other. Ron stayed near the back, doing what Ron did best when terrified. He stayed. He watched for openings. He shouted warnings. "Left!" Ron yelled. Hermione ducked just as a curse ripped past her head. Harry fired again. Expelliarmus! A wand flew out of a Death Eater's hand. Luke snapped his hand out and caught that wand mid-air with the force, then flung it far into the trees. The Death Eater cursed and ran after it. Luke's eyes narrowed. "They're testing," he said. Hermione's voice was breathless. "Testing what?" she shouted. Luke's blade hummed as he turned. "Testing if I'll lose control," he said. As if the forest wanted to prove him right, another wave of cold fear hit. Not a Dementor, not a boggart. Something like the pendant's magic, but weaker now. It brushed Luke's mind like fingers. Luke's anger flared again. He clenched his jaw. He heard Vader's breathing in his memory. He heard the Emperor's laugh. He felt the temptation to end this fast, to cut deep, to scare them so badly they would never come back. He could do it. He knew he could. And he also knew what that choice would cost. Luke took a slow breath. He lowered his blade slightly, not dropping it. Just loosening the grip. He shifted from attack to defense. He used the force to protect the kids first. A curse aimed at Ron. Luke shoved Ron sideways. Ron rolled across the ground and shouted, "I'm fine! I'm fine!" A curse aimed at Harry's chest. Luke yanked Harry backward so hard Harry stumbled into Hermione. Hermione swore, then threw a freezing charm into the trees. A Death Eater shouted as ice crawled up his boots. Luke said, "We leave." Sharp and clear. Harry's eyes flashed. "We can fight," Luke's voice cut through him. "We're not here to win a battle," Luke said. "We're here to survive the trap." Harry's chest heaved. Hermione grabbed Harry's sleeve. "He's right!" she panted. Ron pointed with shaking finger. "Also, there are like 8 of them," he said. Luke backed toward the path they came from, blade up. The Death Eaters pressed in, not rushing to kill, but pushing like shepherds. They wanted to guide them. Luke felt it. He hated it. He made a choice. He reached into the Force and snapped a thick branch off a tree without touching it. The branch whipped around like a fast club and slammed into 2 Death Eaters at once, knocking them down. Hermione shouted, "Incendio!" A line of fire flared across the ground, not toward the trees, but between them and the Death Eaters. It forced the attackers to step back. Harry threw smoke into the air with a spell Hermione had taught him. The clearing filled with gray mist. Luke moved. He took Ron by the shoulder and pulled him along. He grabbed Harry's arm. He did not ask. He yanked them into motion. They ran. Branches slapped their faces. Roots tried to trip them. Spells snapped past in the darkness. And then, ahead, a new shape appeared. A tall figure in black robes, a wand raised. Snape. His face was pale in the moonlight. His eyes took in the scene in one sharp sweep. Students out past curfew. Luke with a glowing blade in the forest. Smoke and fire. Dark magic residue hanging in the air. Snape's voice was like ice. "Explain," he said. Luke did not slow. "Move," Luke said. Snape's eyes narrowed. "Do not give me orders," Snape hissed. A curse snapped from the trees behind them. Snape reacted instantly. He flicked his wand, and the curse deflected into the dirt. Snape's eyes widened just a fraction. He had not expected real attackers. Luke saw the shift in Snape's face. Luke said, "They set a trap," he said, fast. "A cursed object, a boggart strengthened by someone's mind." Snape's mouth tightened. "Someone's mind," he repeated. Luke locked eyes with him. "Voldemort," Luke said. Snape flinched so slightly most people would miss it. Then Snape snapped, "Inside. Now." He turned and moved through the trees like he knew every path. He did. He had walked these grounds more times than Harry could count. The group followed. Snape did not look back, but his wand stayed ready, flicking curses away when they came. They reached the edge of the forest. The Death Eaters did not chase them out. They stopped at the tree line like they had reached the end of their plan. Bellatrix's laugh echoed faintly through the leaves. "Run! Run!" her voice sang. "We learned so much!" Harry's scar burned at the sound. Luke stopped at the forest edge, breathing hard. He wanted to chase her. He wanted to end her laugh. He did not move. He shut off his lightsaber. The green blade vanished. The night felt darker without it. Snape stepped close, eyes locked on Luke. "You brought them into my forest," Snape said, voice low and furious. Luke's voice stayed even. "They were already here," Luke said. "They planted the hook." Snape's gaze slid to Harry. "And you," Snape snapped, "walked toward it like a fool." Harry's anger flared. "I didn't—" Snape cut him off. "Silence!" he hissed. Hermione stepped forward, shaking but stubborn. "Professor," she said, "we destroyed the cursed object. We stopped it from affecting Luke." Snape's eyes flicked to Hermione. "A cursed object affected him?" Snape said. Luke's jaw tightened. Snape's eyes sharpened like blades. "How?" he demanded. Luke looked at Snape and saw something he recognized. Not evil. Fear. Fear wearing control. Luke said, "It showed me things," he said. "Lies. Memories. It tried to push me." Snape's voice went softer, more dangerous. "And did it succeed?" he asked. Ron blurted, "No," then looked like he wanted to swallow his own tongue. Snape's eyes snapped to Ron, then back to Luke. Luke said, "I didn't hurt them," he said. "I didn't lose myself." Snape's lips curled. "Not this time," Snape murmured. Luke's eyes narrowed. "You think I will?" Luke said. Snape said nothing. That was the answer. Dumbledore waited in his office when they returned. He did not shout. He did not punish. He only looked at their faces and understood what had happened before anyone spoke. Luke stood near the door again, like he always did. Harry stood with his shoulders tight, trying to look brave. Hermione's hand shook as she explained the pendant, the boggart, the Death Eaters. Ron kept interrupting, blurting out details like his mouth couldn't hold fear inside. Snape spoke last. "They were baited," Snape said, "and they took it." Dumbledore's eyes moved to Luke. "And you?" Dumbledore asked quietly. Luke's voice was calm, but not smooth anymore. "It got into my head for a second," he admitted. "Not like Voldemort does with Harry. Different. But it tried." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "Then it is as we feared," Dumbledore said. "Voldemort is learning." Snape's voice was sharp. "He already learned," Snape said. "He learned that Luke Skywalker has cracks." Hermione flinched. Harry's fists clenched. Luke's eyes went cold for a moment. "Everyone has cracks," Luke said. Snape's gaze held his. "Yes," Snape said. "And Voldemort will pour poison into yours until something breaks." Luke's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue. He wanted to snap back. Instead, he breathed. In, out. He looked at Dumbledore. "They wanted to see if I'd turn," Luke said. Dumbledore nodded. "Yes," he said. Luke's voice was steady again. "Then we don't give them what they want," Luke said. Dumbledore's eyes warmed, just a little. "No," he agreed. "We do not." Snape's face stayed hard. "And what do we do when the next hook is sharper?" Snape asked. Luke's gaze turned to Harry, then Hermione, then Ron. "We train," Luke said. "We plan. We protect each other." His voice lowered. "And we stop pretending this war will wait until we feel ready." Silence filled the office. Even the instruments seemed to pause. Dumbledore finally spoke. "I will increase protections," he said, "and I will speak to the Order." He looked at Luke. "And you, Luke," he said gently, "must rest." Luke's mouth twitched, tired. "This castle doesn't allow rest," he said. For a second, even Snape looked like he almost smiled. Almost. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to the window. Far away beyond the trees, the night was quiet again. But it was not peace. It was the space between moves. And now, everyone in the room understood the same truth. Luke Skywalker was not just a strange guest anymore. He was a central piece in the war. Voldemort had tested him. Voldemort had learned something. And Voldemort would come again, not with a loud army, but with smarter hooks. Because the real fight was not just on the battlefield, it was inside choices. 2 weeks after the night in the forest, Hogwarts started to feel like a place that could breathe again. Not safe, not normal, but less like the walls were closing in every hour. The students still whispered when Luke walked by. Some stared like he was a dragon. Some stared like he was a hero from a bedtime story. Luke did not look for the attention. He moved through corridors like a man who wanted to be invisible and could never be. He built a routine anyway. Before sunrise, Luke tried to meditate. He chose places no one else seemed to like. A cold hallway near a set of empty classrooms. A small landing near a window that faced the lake. A quiet corner behind a tapestry that smelled like dust. Hogwarts treated his routine like a challenge. The first morning, he sat down and closed his eyes. A portrait behind him started singing, loudly and off-key. Luke opened one eye, stared at the portrait, then closed it again. The second morning, he found a perfect quiet spot. Then the moving staircase shifted and parked itself directly beside him, groaning like it was proud. Luke stood up, stepped onto the stair, and rode it to the other end, like he had decided that was the plan. The third morning, he made it 3 full minutes before Peeves drifted by and shouted, "Shiny Swordman is doing the sleepy sit again. Everyone clap!" Luke didn't clap. He didn't yell. He just breathed in and out until Peeves got bored and left. By the 4th morning, Ron Weasley was waiting nearby with Hermione, both pretending they were just walking past. Ron whispered, "I told Seamus you'd make it 2 minutes today." Luke opened his eyes. "How much did you bet?" he asked. Ron grinned. "2 sickles," he said. Hermione snapped. "Ron!" Luke blinked. "You're betting money on my piece," he said, sounding honestly offended. Ron shrugged. "It keeps morale up," he said. Luke stared at him for a long second. Then Luke said, very dry, "If I make it 5 minutes tomorrow, you owe me half." Ron's grin widened. "Deal," he said. Hermione covered her face with her hand, like she was embarrassed for all of them. Luke went back to breathing. The corner of his mouth twitched like he might be smiling. That was the kind of routine Luke built. Calm on purpose, even when the world acted like a clown. At night, Luke trained. Not a large group, not a big display. A small circle of people who truly needed it and could keep a secret. Harry, Hermione, Ron, Neville, sometimes Ginny, sometimes Luna, who showed up without warning and asked questions that made Luke stop and think. Luke did not teach them to be Jedi. That was not possible. He did not pretend it was. He taught them the part that translated. Breathe before you move. Look before you strike. Choose the goal, not the feeling. And he drilled one simple rule into them until they hated it and loved it at the same time. Protect people first, Luke said. Win later. Harry didn't always agree. Harry's anger still boiled under his skin like hot water under a lid. But Luke never tried to crush that anger. He tried to shape it into something useful. Hermione took to the training like it was a class that finally made sense. Ron complained through every drill and still showed up every time. Neville stayed quiet, then surprised everyone when he started improving fast, like something in him had been waiting for permission. Through all of it, Snape watched. Not in a friendly way, not in a proud teacher way, in a predator way. Sometimes Luke would feel eyes on the back of his neck and know Snape was somewhere nearby, hidden by darkness and skill. Luke didn't confront him about it. He understood caution. He just made sure he never gave Snape a reason to think the worst. Then one evening, after training, Luke walked alone back toward the corridors near the staff tower. The castle was quiet for once, too quiet. Luke stopped. He felt it like a change in air pressure, a wrongness, a mind pressing on the edges of his thoughts like fingers on glass. He did not panic. He did not reach for his lightsaber. He breathed, he centered, and then the voice came, soft and smooth inside his mind. Luke Skywalker. Luke's body went still. No one at Hogwarts knew his full name. He had never said it out loud here. Not to Dumbledore, not to Harry, not to anyone. The voice in his mind continued, slow and pleased. "So that is the shape of you." Luke's jaw tightened. He did not answer. The voice chuckled, like it enjoyed the silence. "You are far from your stars," it whispered. "And yet, you still try to be noble." Luke finally spoke, not with his mouth, but with his will. He pushed back the way he would against a hostile mind. "Who are you?" Luke sent, sharp and direct. The answer came with cold confidence. "I am the one your boy fears. I am the one who has already lived through death. I am Voldemort." Luke's chest tightened, but he kept his mind steady. "You're inside Hogwarts," Luke sent. "Not yet," the voice purred, "but I can touch you from far away. That should tell you something, Jedi." Luke felt the pressure grow. Voldemort was strong. Stronger than Luke expected, from the way wizards spoke of mind magic. This was not a simple trick. It was a blade. Luke's control held anyway. "What do you want?" Luke sent. Voldemort's voice softened like a salesman offering a deal. "You want to go home?" Luke's eyes narrowed. He did want to go home. He missed the stars. He missed the feel of his ship. He missed people who understood his world. He didn't hide that from himself. Voldemort went on. "You do not belong in a school. You do not belong in a child's war. I can open the tear again. I can show you the path between worlds. I can give you the door." Luke's throat tightened. It was a real hook, a smart hook. Luke did not bite. "And what do you want in return?" Luke sent. Voldemort's voice turned playful. "Only understanding," it said. "Only a conversation. You and I are not so different. We are both powerful. We both carry scars. We both know what it is to be chosen." Luke felt anger flicker in him at that lie. He pushed the anger down. He didn't crush it. He just refused to let it steer. "You're a murderer," Luke sent. Voldemort's voice became a quiet hiss. "I am a man who refused to kneel to death," it said. "You should respect that, Jedi. You let your father die. You let your mentors die. You pretend peace is enough." Luke felt the words land, not because they were true, but because they were aimed well. Luke's mind flashed with Yoda's small hand, Obi-Wan's tired eyes, Anakin's face, finally free, right before the end. Luke's chest hurt. Voldemort pressed harder. "I can teach you how to stop loss," Voldemort whispered. "I can teach you how to break the rule that says everything ends." Imagine it. Imagine never watching someone you love slip away again. Luke's hands clenched at his sides. This was the second hook. Not home. Control over death. Luke understood the dark side well enough to recognize it in a different costume. He sent one clear thought back, like a door slamming shut. "No." The pressure paused. Voldemort's voice grew colder. "You refuse me," it said. "I refuse what you are selling," Luke sent. "And I refuse your methods." A faint, ugly laugh drifted through Luke's mind. "Methods," Voldemort echoed. "You are standing in a castle where children learn spells that can rip minds and bodies apart. Do not pretend you are above this world." Luke's reply was steady. "I'm not above it," he sent. "I'm responsible for what I do in it." The pressure turned sharp, like a knife trying to slip into a crack. Luke's breathing slowed further. He anchored himself harder. Voldemort tried again, voice slick. "Then let me prove my good faith. Let me give you something." Luke didn't answer. Voldemort whispered, almost kindly, "Tonight, the Ministry will try to take you. They will call it safety. They will call it law. You know what it really is." Luke's eyes narrowed. Voldemort continued, "I can stop it. I can make the problem go away. All you must do is step outside the castle when the time comes." Luke felt the trap shape itself in real time. A public move, a staged moment, a chance to isolate him. Luke sent back a single thought. "You won't stop it. You'll use it." Voldemort's voice sharpened with irritation. "Perhaps," it admitted. "But you will step outside anyway, Jedi. You always do. You cannot help yourself. You rush to protect people. You walk into hooks because you cannot bear to watch others suffer." Luke didn't deny that. He simply sent the truth. "Yes, I protect people." Then Luke sent the second truth, and I choose how. The pressure in his mind snapped off like a hand pulling away. The corridor felt warmer again. Luke exhaled slowly. He didn't feel proud. He felt warned. Voldemort did not have eyes in Hogwarts, not in the simple way. But he had people. He had fear. He had threads. And he had Dolores Umbridge, who did not serve him, but served something that could be used. That night, Umbridge gathered her inquisitorial squad and 2 ministry oars in the entrance hall. She held a rolled parchment like it was a weapon. "This," she said, smiling, "is an official directive." The oars looked uncomfortable. They were not stupid. They had heard rumors about Dementors in the castle. They had heard about Death Eaters near the grounds. They did not want to be here. But they were ministry. Umbridge's smile grew wider. "We are taking the visitor," she said, "for questioning. The headmaster will not like it. But the law is the law." A student in the squad swallowed. "What if he fights?" the student asked. Umbridge's eyes glittered. "Then we will prove he is dangerous," she said sweetly. Up in the castle, Dumbledore already knew. He stood in his office with Snape, McGonagall, and Moody. Luke stood near the window, calm but ready. "They are attempting to force a custody move," Moody growled. His magical eye spun. "Right out of the Umbridge playbook." McGonagall's face was pale with anger. "She will endanger students to make a point," she said. Snape's voice was quiet. "And it will not be the only danger tonight," he said. Everyone looked at him. Snape's eyes slid to Luke. "He warned you," Snape said, low. Luke didn't pretend he didn't know what Snape meant. "Yes," Luke said. Dumbledore's gaze stayed gentle, but his voice was firm. "Then we don't give him what he wants," Dumbledore said. Luke nodded. "We don't step outside alone," Luke said. Moody slammed his staff once. "We set our own trap," he said. Dumbledore's eyes sharpened. "No," Dumbledore said. "We set a shield, not a trap. We do not play games with children as bait." Luke's jaw tightened. "He'll come anyway," Luke said. Dumbledore nodded. "Yes," he said. "But we decide the battlefield." The plan formed fast. McGonagall and Flitwick would lock down student corridors and move househeads to guard common rooms. Moody would coordinate order members already hidden on the grounds. Snape would disappear, because Snape disappearing meant Snape was doing something important. Luke would stay inside Hogwarts until the moment it was necessary to move. And Dumbledore would meet the ministry at the entrance hall with calm words and sharp power. Luke listened. He did not argue. He respected strategy. Still, his hands flexed once at his sides. He didn't like waiting while bullies marched. He did it anyway, because he had promised himself something. Protect people first. Win later. The entrance hall filled with footsteps. Umbridge stood with her parchment raised. "Albus," she called, voice bright. "As Senior Undersecretary." Dumbledore arrived with McGonagall and Flitwick. His robes swept the stone like a calm tide. Luke walked beside Dumbledore, hands empty, lightsaber clipped at his belt. Students peeked from balconies and stair landings. Whispers rose like steam. Umbridge's smile stretched wider. "Ah," she said. "There he is." She held out the parchment like she expected Luke to take it. Luke did not move. Dumbledore spoke first. "Dolores," he said, "you may speak your piece. Quickly." Umbridge's voice turned formal. She read the directive in a crisp tone. Words like security risk and unauthorized weapon and temporary detention echoed off stone. Luke heard the words and felt a familiar anger. A man in a uniform reading orders that hurt people. A small person hiding behind big law. When Umbridge finished, she smiled and said, "Now, Mr. Luke, you will come with us." Luke's gaze stayed steady. "No," he said. Umbridge's smile twitched. "You have no choice," she said. Luke's voice stayed calm. "I always have a choice," he said. Umbridge's eyes sharpened. "Aurors," she said. "Take him." One Auror stepped forward and swallowed. "Sir," he said to Luke, trying to sound brave, "please don't make this difficult." Luke looked at him. The Auror was not cruel, just trapped. Luke said, "I won't hurt you," and meant it. "But you're not taking me." The Auror lifted his wand anyway, because fear makes hands shake. Before anyone cast, Dumbledore's voice cut through. "Enough," Dumbledore said, calm and absolute. The torches flared brighter. The air tightened. The Aurors froze, not by a spell they could name, but by the sudden feeling that a mountain had stood up. Umbridge's smile flickered. "Albus," she hissed. "You cannot." Dumbledore's eyes turned to her. "Dolores," he said, "you have forgotten something. Hogwarts is not your office, and you are not the only one who knows the law." Umbridge's cheeks flushed. "The minister," Dumbledore lifted a finger, "is not here," he said. Then the wind hit the doors. Not a normal wind. A cold wave that smelled like damp stone and old graves. The torches dimmed. Students gasped. Luke's head snapped toward the doors. His instincts screamed. Dementors. The main doors rattled as if something heavy pressed against them. Moody's voice boomed from somewhere above. "Positions!" McGonagall shouted. "Students back!" Umbridge's face went pale. "What is that?" she squeaked. No one answered her, because the doors burst open. Cold air rolled in like a flood. Dementors poured into the entrance hall, dozens of them, cloaks dragging, darkness swallowing light. Students screamed. Some fainted on the spot. The Aurors raised their wands in panic. Umbridge stumbled backward, her parchment fluttering from her fingers like a dead bird. Luke stepped forward, instinct screaming to run at the threat. Then he stopped himself. Dementors were not soldiers. He had learned that already. Dumbledore's wand lifted. "Expecto Patronum," Dumbledore thundered. A massive burst of silver light exploded from him and filled the hall. It wasn't just an animal shape, it was a wall. It slammed into the first line of Dementors and drove them back. Other Patronuses flared from McGonagall and Flitwick and the Aurors, smaller and shakier. The Dementors wavered. Then something else happened. From outside, from the dark beyond the doors, green light flashed. A killing curse shot into the entrance hall, aimed not at Dumbledore, but at a cluster of students. Luke moved. He didn't think. He didn't swing his lightsaber. He didn't try to block the curse with light. He reached out with the force and ripped a stone bench up from the floor. The bench flew into the path of the curse. The curse hit the stone and shattered it into dust. Chunks of stone rained down. Students screamed again. Luke shoved the students backward with a force push that felt like a firm hand, not a blast. "Move!" Luke shouted, voice sharp. Harry appeared on the staircase above with Hermione and Ron, having ignored every rule in the book. Harry's eyes were wide, but his wand was already up. "Expecto Patronum!" Harry shouted. The silver stag burst out and charged down the stairs into the hall, slamming into Dementors and driving them away from the students. For a second, the hall was a storm of light and shadow. Then Death Eaters poured in behind the Dementors, using them as cover. They were not here to win a fight. They were here to grab. Luke felt it at once. Their movement wasn't random. It had direction. Toward Harry. Toward Luke. Voldemort's voice echoed in Luke's memory. "Step outside." Luke clenched his jaw. So this is the move. Snape appeared like a shadow near a side door. He flicked his wand and sealed a corridor, cutting off a group of Death Eaters trying to slip deeper into the castle. Moody burst into the hall from another passage, firing stunning spells like he was angry at the world. Order members arrived through hidden routes, forming a line between Death Eaters and students. Luke became a moving shield. He used the Force to yank wands away, to shove attackers into walls, to pull students out of the path of curses. He moved so fast that Hermione's eyes struggled to track him. Ron, shaking, grabbed a first-year girl who had fallen and dragged her behind a pillar. "Stay down," he yelled, voice cracking. Hermione sprinted to a group of students and started directing them like a commander. "To the Great Hall," she shouted. "Stick together." Harry fired spells with sharp, controlled movements, the way Luke had drilled into him. Not perfect, but better. Luke saw one Death Eater raise a wand and aim at Harry's back. Luke's hand snapped out. The Death Eater's wand flew up and spun away. The Death Eater looked shocked, then furious. Luke ignited his lightsaber. The green blade snapped to life, humming, bright enough to cut through the Dementor cold. Gasps rose again from students. Luke did not pose. He did not show off. He used the blade like a warning line, like a bright fence. A Death Eater lunged close, trying to cast from point-blank range. Luke stepped in, turned his wrist, and sliced the wand clean in half before the spell could fire. The Death Eater stumbled back, staring at the smoking wood like it was impossible. Luke shoved him backward with the force and turned, scanning for the next threat. Dumbledore moved through the chaos like a storm wearing human skin. His spells were clean and exact. He did not waste motion. He did not panic. But Luke noticed something that made his stomach tighten. Dumbledore was doing two jobs at once. He was fighting, and he was holding the castle's protection steady against the Dementors and the break-in. Even for Dumbledore, that was a heavy load. Then the air went colder than before. The Dementors stopped wavering. They froze, like dogs hearing a whistle. A presence pressed into the hall. Not through doors, but through fear. Harry's scar burned so hard he cried out. Harry grabbed his head. "He's here!" he gasped. Luke felt it too. Not in the force exactly, in the shape of intent. A mind that believed the world should bend. The shadows near the doorway thickened, and a figure stepped in. Not fully. Not like a normal person walking in. More like the darkness decided to stand up and wear a body. Red eyes gleamed. A pale face. A wand like a bone. Voldemort. Students screamed. Some tried to run and slipped on the stone floor. Umbridge made a small, broken sound and collapsed behind a statue, shaking. Dumbledore's wand snapped toward Voldemort at once. Voldemort's gaze, however, landed on Luke. He smiled. "Skywalker," Voldemort said aloud, voice smooth. The name hit the hall like a slap. Hermione's eyes flew wide. Ron's mouth fell open. Harry froze mid-breath. Luke's jaw tightened. So Voldemort had decided to reveal it like this. Public, cruel, dramatic. Voldemort's smile widened. "A Jedi," he said, like he enjoyed the word. "A warrior who pretends to be a saint." Luke stepped forward, lightsaber humming. He didn't shake. He didn't look away. He said, "You're using monsters as shields," Luke said. "That tells me everything I need to know." Voldemort's eyes glittered. "And you," Voldemort purred, "are using children as your reason to feel important." Harry flinched, like the words hit him too. Luke didn't bite. He said, "I'm here because you came for them," Luke said. "And you don't get them." Voldemort's gaze slid to Harry and back to Luke, enjoying the triangle. Then Voldemort raised his wand, not toward Luke, but toward a group of students huddled near a pillar. A silent threat. Luke moved first. He did not charge Voldemort like it was a duel. He threw his hand out and ripped the pillar itself sideways with the force. The stone pillar slid across the floor and placed itself between Voldemort's wand and the students, like a giant shield. The hall shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Voldemort's eyes narrowed, genuinely interested. Dumbledore struck. A spell like a whip of bright fire snapped toward Voldemort. Voldemort flicked his wand and answered with a wave of dark force. The two powers collided and blasted air outward. Students ducked. Hair flew, robes snapped like flags. Luke felt the temptation again. He could try to end Voldemort. He could leap in with the lightsaber. He could attempt to cut. But Luke could feel something wrong in Voldemort's presence. Not just evil. Fragmented. Like pieces held together by hate. Luke didn't know what a Horcrux was yet, not fully. But he could sense that killing the body might not end the threat. And right now, the hall was full of children. So Luke chose the mission. Protect people first. Win later. He turned his back on Voldemort's taunts and shouted, "Evacuate!" Hermione snapped into action, voice ringing. "Great Hall now! Stay together!" McGonagall herded students with fierce commands. Flitwick threw protective charms like a storm of shields. Moody slammed a Death Eater into a wall with a stunning spell and roared, "Move, you little idiots!" Ron grabbed Neville and pulled him away from a collapsing section of stone. "Come on," he yelled. "Feet!" Harry shook, scar burning. But he lifted his wand again. He fired a disarming spell, then another, forcing a path open for younger students. Luke used the Force like an extra set of hands everywhere at once. A falling chandelier started to snap loose. Luke caught it mid-drop, held it in the air, and guided it gently to the floor so it wouldn't crush anyone. A group of Dementors drifted toward a knot of terrified kids. Luke didn't attack them directly. He moved the kids away first, then shouted to Harry, "Patronus!" Harry's stag charged and drove the Dementors back again. Voldemort watched Luke do it. He looked annoyed. Not because Luke was strong, because Luke was refusing the game Voldemort wanted. Voldemort raised his wand again, this time toward Luke's head. Dumbledore stepped between them. Their spells collided again, the air cracking with power. For a moment, the entrance hall was two storms fighting, bright and dark, heat and cold. Luke stayed on the edge of it, not weak, not helpless, but choosing the work that mattered. He felt Snape slip behind Voldemort's line of sight. Snape moved like a shadow with a purpose. A second later, Snape fired a spell toward the doorway, not at Voldemort, but at the floor under the Death Eaters. The stone turned slick like ice. Two Death Eaters fell. One slammed into the wall, dazed. It was not heroic. It was not dramatic. It was effective. Luke noticed. Luke filed it away. Then Voldemort's eyes flicked toward Snape for the briefest instant. Snape did not react. Voldemort's attention snapped back to Luke and Harry like Snape didn't matter. That was the most terrifying proof that Snape was still playing a deadly game. The last students made it through the corridor toward the Great Hall. McGonagall slammed the doors behind them with a spell. Dumbledore's voice boomed, "Now!" Order members pushed the Death Eaters back toward the entrance. Moody shouted, "Drive them out!" Luke stepped forward at last, lightsaber up, and pointed the blade toward the doorway. He didn't swing wildly. He didn't chase. He made the space in front of him a bright, dangerous line. A Death Eater tried to rush past him. Luke flicked his wrist and tapped the Death Eater's wand hand with the flat of the blade. The wand flew, smoking. The Death Eater froze, then fled. Bellatrix appeared for a heartbeat at the doorway, eyes wild, laughing like the world was a joke. "Skywalker!" she sang. "Cut me! Come on!" Luke didn't move toward her. He stared her down and said, low and cold, "Leave." Bellatrix's grin widened. Then she vanished backward into the night as if pulled. Because Voldemort lifted a hand, and the Dementors began to withdraw, like a curtain closing. Voldemort took one last look at Luke. The red eyes glittered with promise. "This is not over," Voldemort said. Luke's reply was simple. "I know," Luke said. Voldemort's smile turned thin. "Good," he said. Then he was gone, pulling Death Eaters and cold shadows with him. The entrance hall fell quiet in slow pieces. People breathed like they had forgotten how. Torches flared back into steady light. Stone dust hung in the air, Luke shut off his lightsaber. The hum died. He stood still for a moment, chest rising and falling, and felt the shape of what had just happened. Voldemort had not come to win. He had come to mark Luke, to reveal him. To force the castle and the children to see Luke as a central part of the war. And it had worked. Because now everyone knew the name. Skywalker. Hermione stared at Luke like her brain was racing ahead of her mouth. Ron looked like he wanted to ask 1,000 questions and was too tired to ask one. Harry's scar still throbbed, but his eyes were locked on Luke with something new. Not just awe. Trust. Dumbledore approached Luke slowly. "You did well," Dumbledore said quietly. Luke's voice was low. "He'll come again," Luke said. "Yes," Dumbledore agreed. Luke looked at the shattered stone, the broken doors, the frightened faces peeking back into the hall. "He wanted me to chase him," Luke said. Dumbledore nodded. "And you did not," he said. Luke's jaw tightened. "I wanted to," Luke admitted. Dumbledore's eyes softened. "Wanting is not the same as doing," he said. From behind them, Umbridge crawled out from her hiding place, face streaked with tears, pink cardigan dirty. She looked at the damage, then at Dumbledore, then at Luke. Her mouth opened. She tried to speak like she still had power. No words came out, because everyone had seen her. They had seen her hide, while others protected children. They had seen her rules do nothing against real darkness. She turned and stumbled away without a single threat. For the first time, her control had cracked in front of witnesses. Luke watched her go and felt no joy, only a tired understanding. Small tyrants always vanish when real danger shows up. Later that night, in the Great Hall, students sat wrapped in blankets, while professors checked injuries and counted heads. Luke moved through them quietly, helping where he could, lifting fallen benches, carrying water, moving heavy rubble as if it were light. He did not do it to be admired. He did it because it needed doing. Harry found him near the staff table, where the candles floated again, flickering softly. Harry's voice was hoarse. "So, Skywalker," Harry said. Luke looked at him. For a second, Luke looked like he might apologize. Then he chose honesty. "Yes," Luke said. "Luke Skywalker." Hermione stood behind Harry, eyes wide. Ron was beside her, looking like he'd just learned a dragon existed. Ron blurted, "That's a proper cool name," then winced like he'd said it too loud. Luke huffed a quiet breath that might have been a laugh. Hermione whispered, "He knew," she said. Luke nodded. "He searched," Luke said. "He pushed into my mind. He found the label." Harry's scar throbbed again, like it hated hearing it. Harry swallowed. "He offered you a way home," Harry said. Luke's eyes sharpened. "He touched you too," Luke realized. Harry looked away. "Yeah," Harry muttered. Luke's voice was firm. "He will use that link," Luke said. "He will try to turn your feelings into his tools." Harry's hands clenched. "I know," he said. Luke placed a hand on Harry's shoulder, not heavy, just steady. "I refused him," Luke said. Harry looked up fast. "Why?" he asked, like part of him couldn't believe someone would refuse a way out. Luke's answer was simple. "Because the door he offers isn't a door," Luke said. "It's a chain." Harry stared at him, breathing hard. Then Harry nodded once. It wasn't a happy moment, but it was a clear one, and clarity mattered in war. After that night, Hogwarts changed. The Order visited more often. Security strengthened. Training became more serious, even when it stayed secret. People stopped pretending the danger was maybe. The legend of Luke Skywalker spread through the school like fire, but it changed shape depending on who told it. Some told it like a scary story. Some told it like a hero story. Luke didn't correct them. He focused on the work. He became a quiet guardian, a teacher in the shadows, a steady hand that helped kids stand up straighter. Voldemort did not stop. He adapted. And now, he treated Luke as a rival piece on the board, not a random accident. Because Luke had shown the one thing Voldemort hated most, a powerful person who refused to be ruled by fear. Much later, when the castle finally slept, Luke found a window that faced the lake. The sky was clearer tonight. The clouds had moved on. Stars showed through, small and cold and far away. Luke stood with his hands resting on the stone sill. He missed the stars of his own world. He missed the way space felt open and honest. Here, the sky was smaller. The air was heavier. The ground felt older. He heard footsteps behind him and did not turn. He already knew who it was. Harry Potter stopped beside him, hands shoved into his pockets, like he didn't know what to do with them. For a while, they just stood there. No speeches, no big plan talk, just quiet. Harry finally said, "I hate that he's in my head." Luke nodded. "I hate it too," Luke said. Harry swallowed. "Sometimes," Harry admitted. "I think, if I was stronger, it wouldn't happen." Luke turned his head slightly. "That's not how it works," Luke said. Harry frowned. "Then how does it work?" he asked. Luke looked out at the lake. "Bad people don't get power because you're weak," Luke said. "They get power because they choose to take it. They use what they can." Harry's throat tightened. "So I'm just a tool?" Harry whispered. Luke's voice sharpened, firm but kind. "No," Luke said. "A tool doesn't choose. You do." Harry stared at the stars like he wanted to disappear into them. Luke continued. "You can't control the fact that he is linked to you," Luke said. "But you can control what you feed him." Harry's jaw tightened. "I feed him my anger," Harry said quietly. Luke nodded. "Yes," Luke said. "And he loves that." Harry's eyes flashed. "So I'm supposed to be calm like you?" he snapped. Luke didn't flinch. "No," Luke said. "You're supposed to be you. Brave, stubborn, loyal. But you learn to pause before you act." Harry's breathing slowed, just a little. Luke pointed at the glass with a small nod. "See the stars?" Luke asked. Harry looked. "Yeah," he said. Luke's voice softened. "In my world," Luke said, "I used to look at the sky and feel small. Then I learned small doesn't mean useless." Harry swallowed. "Do you still want to go home?" he asked. Luke's chest tightened. He didn't lie. "Yes," Luke said. Harry's shoulders sagged. "Then why are you still here?" Harry asked, voice rough. Luke took a slow breath. He answered in the simplest way. "Because you're kids," Luke said. "And someone keeps trying to break you." Harry's eyes stung. He blinked hard. Luke added, "And because I know what it feels like to stand between light and dark and wonder if you'll fail." Harry's voice was small. "Did you fail?" he asked. Luke looked at him. "I failed sometimes," Luke said. "I got angry. I made mistakes. But I learned something that matters." Harry waited. Luke said, "You don't win by being perfect," Luke said. "You win by choosing again." Harry stared at the stars. Then he nodded once. Not a big nod. A real one. Behind them, a portrait down the corridor started arguing with another portrait about who was louder. Harry flinched. Luke's mouth twitched. Harry said, "You're never going to meditate in peace, are you?" Luke exhaled a quiet laugh, more air than sound. "Probably not," he said. Harry's lips lifted, just a little. "Good," he said. "Because if you did, the castle might explode from the shock." Luke glanced at him. "Your castle is dramatic," Luke said. Harry shrugged. "So is my life," he said. They stood there a bit longer. The lake was dark and still. The stars didn't care about Voldemort. They didn't care about the Ministry. They didn't care about rules or fear. They just existed. Luke watched them and felt something steady in his chest. He was far from home. The war here was strange. The rules were different. But the choice was the same as it had always been. Luke spoke softly, almost to himself, but Harry heard it anyway. "Hope," Luke said, "is something you do." Harry didn't argue. He just stood beside him, breathing slower than he had in weeks, looking up at the sky like it might hold a future. And in the quiet, even with portraits bickering behind them, the two of them felt the same simple truth. Life would keep going. It would be hard. It would be different now, but it would keep going.